Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Seeing we have 4 members here, we have quorum. That's good. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. Good morning, everyone. I'm really excited about the program that we have today, the agenda, and I'd like to start with, well, we have to approve the agenda first. So do we have any objections to the agenda the way it's stated, or does somebody want to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Next on the agenda are the action items. Yeah, we don't have anything there. So the main thing today is the overview, and Sue is going to do that. Her slides are coming up, and I am going to jump off.
Great. Well, good morning. I'm going to actually open up and do a little introduction, but welcome everybody. And if you see some of the staff here today walking around in a cloud, it's because it's kind of our first week coming back officially. So we're running into people we haven't seen in person for 2 years. So it is a little interesting, but it's great to be back. So, as we get started here this morning, we got 2 items as the chair mentioned. One of those, as we've talked about this Water Resources Committee, the theme this quarter is kind of around our education and outreach. So we tend to kind of look at those and say, hey, what have we not sort of shared? What would be interesting to kind of hear about? And today we have 2 things. We're going to highlight our customer care and education group and kind of get into a little bit broader kind of scope of all the activities and things they're doing. I think it'll be some new stuff, some stuff you've kind of heard, but thought it'd be interesting to be able to walk through that. And then secondly, one of the things we've kind of gotten into over the last few years is we've just finished up in Virginia the legislative season here through the winter, and so we'll give a little update on some of the activities and things that went on there, especially related to what we're doing. So those are the 2 things for today. So first, Sue Crosby is going to kind of lead through the first item and highlight the team that she leads. And I wanted to just mention a couple things kind of first in terms of almost defining our customers. Really primarily, number 1 priority is our ratepayers, and that's, typically what we think of. But for this group, they also, have customers in all the internal groups. They're a resource for those. And so I think you'll get to see a little bit of some of the activities and ways they're able to help there. We've got other stakeholders like the schools that we're very involved in and think of like that. And also the county, of course, and primarily a lot of the issues through the Board of Supervisors kind of come through this group as well, in different ways. So that we get involved in. So, the one other thing in terms of introduction, just was thinking about kind of the qualities of kind of the people in this group and the words that come to mind: patience and compassion and knowledge. They have to know, really a lot about our business and be able to explain to the customers. They spend a lot of time talking on the phone with them. But also it's managing expectations. And there are times when we've got to hold the line on some of these things. As an authority, we've got certain ways we have rules that we have to follow. So they really do a great job of striking the balance and all that. And we get the benefit of getting to hear, we get a lot of feedback from customers. It's fun to get to read that because it's been some really good stuff here, especially over the last couple of years, with just all of the kind of environment that we've been in. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sue.
Thank you. Well, good morning. It's really nice to be back and my first day back in the office. So this is a great way to get thrown right back in presentation. Today, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite departments at Loudon Water, and obviously that's the Customer Relations and Communications Department. We don't often hear a lot about this group, but they really are the heartbeat and the front lines of the organization. So here's our agenda this morning. We're going to talk about just a brief overview We'll talk about the customer relations group, some statistics that I'll share with you, what we do, and then I'll kind of transition a little bit into the communications group and then the outreach and engagement tools and tactics that we use. So I'm going to start here with just a nod to our strategic plan. Goal area 5 is active community engagement, which is to say cultivate and develop relationships to build support, understanding, and mutual respect. And obviously other departments at Loudon Water strive to meet this goal as well, but it really is the framework for all of our endeavors in customer relations and engagement. So here's our department team structure. We have one director. We have a total of 19 team members, one director, and a lot happens among these 19 folks, and I'll get a little bit into that as we move forward. In customer relations, we have one manager, we have a supervisor, 9 customer service representatives, which are basically our call takers. 3 are bilingual. We have 2 account technicians, and basically they do a lot of work in SAP, a lot of the process related questions with billing. Collections assistant who works also with billing. We have a customer relations and hydrant meter coordinator, and she does a lot of work with calibrations and truck inspections and those types of things. And then we have one receptionist who is down at the front desk who greets everyone with her smiling face and does a lot of support work for our group. And then in communications and outreach, we have one community engagement manager, and she's really responsible for all of our digital efforts, in addition to our school and HOA and in-person outreach, and also with some regional groups that we work with. And then we have a customer communications coordinator, and she will provide support for the department, do a lot of writing, some social media, and she's starting on Monday. So that'll be really fun to get a new person trained and on board. But in a nutshell, we are really the brand ambassadors of Loudon Water. We are sales, we are marketing, we are customer service and support, we are media relations and public affairs. So proportionally speaking, we're kind of small, but we have a lot to do. So first, I'm going to talk about customer relations. I mentioned earlier that they are the front lines, and they literally are. Every single call that comes through the Loudon Water call center is routed to one of our customer service representatives. And this is just a little bit about what they do. On a typical day, they start and stop service for our customers. They will answer questions about bills, review water consumption, encourage customers to register for LW Connect, which is our online customer portal, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Leak troubleshooting, and then kind of what Mark mentioned before, knowing a little bit about everything. And what I mean by that is engineering. If there's a project in somebody's neighborhood, they need to know why it's happening, how will it impact me, when is it taking place, and why. They'll get calls about water quality issues, so they will work with compliance to address any concerns. Hydrant flushing is another great example we're doing now, and they have to know, answering the questions, why does my water have a funny taste or odor, and what can I do to mitigate that? And then this is a true story. Andrea shared this with me, but a customer called in and wanted to paint the fire hydrant in front of their house to match their shutters, and their shutters were peacock blue, so the customer relations agent had to explain why hydrants couldn't be painted. The phone call ended okay, so we're good there. Peacock? Well, they wanted to paint it peacock blue, but they could not. This is just a few statistics. I think this is a little shocking for some people. We average about 240 calls per day. At least 15 of those are in Spanish. The average handling time of each call is about 5 minutes. Online forms is another big part of the job. A lot of requests come in through our website. So we had 17,000 online forms for 2021. Builder transfer forms, 1,400 for 2021, and hydrant meter activities, 550. And this is just a sample of some of those forms that we get in. But obviously, these are just averages. We have 5 minutes per call. a call could take anywhere from, a quick 1-minute phone call. It could last 20 minutes if there's a leak that they have to troubleshoot. Or a call can end up being 3 calls following up to make sure a customer's request or question is fully satisfied.
So I have a question real quick.
Yeah.
Builder transfer.
So basically, that is when a builder has a development and then they turn it over to the customer. And so they have to fill out a form that then the customer will take ownership of that meter and be responsible for the water at that
So does the
property.
builder have to reach out to Loud and Water, or is that the customer then,
The builder reaches out to Loud and Water.
okay, and says, hey, I'm handing this over to the,
Mhm.
and that goes to our customer relations?
Yes, and then it'll go through the process of starting service.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
240 calls is a lot of calls.
It is a lot of calls, yes. Yeah, I think it's interesting because most of us, we can sit at our desk, go grab a cup of coffee, talk to some of our, neighbors and colleagues down the hall. But the customer service representatives, they really have to be in ready mode on their computer. It says ready mode when a call comes in. So they get breaks, obviously, they get a lunch hour, obviously, but they really do an amazing job. And you really have to love what you do to be in that position and do it well. So yeah, they do take a lot of calls per day.
I really like what you said about knowing a little bit about everything. Somebody sees the clearing going through their HOA when we maintain the right of way, that's the first person they call.
Absolutely.
Hopefully, or they might call Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think also it's just a really great way to speak to the culture of Loud and Water because everyone is very good with sharing information. An engineer will pop over to a customer relations, the supervisor or manager, and say, hey, we have this going on in, Selma or Raspberry. Just a heads up in case calls come in. If you get into a situation where the question's too technical, here's my extension, have them call me. So it's a really open communication and it really helps them feel confident when they take the phone call.
Well, and I think over time, like for engineering projects, like the project managers now have kind of gotten into where they'll put together like a 1-page project sheet and keep that updated on a regular basis so that the customer service reps have access, and kind of see the updated schedule and where the status of things. So it's been a really good process where, those things keep updated. So it makes it easier for their job.
Yeah, we're all singing from the same song sheet, so it helps. So partnering with field service, this is another great partnership that we have. The CSRs work with field service planner to create work orders for the field service techs in the field. And the CSRs have direct contact with the technician performing the work to really help them understand what the findings were so they can relay that information to the customer. And again, it's just really a great relationship to have because sometimes, they'll just, here's the work order, they'll go do the work and then it kind of ends and it dies, but not here. It's kind of in a loop and they'll get the information back. So when the customer calls back in, they'll have a good understanding of what's happening in the field. And sometimes our technicians in the field will also be kind enough to speak with our customers as well, because a lot of people are interested in what they're doing and they'll take the time to actually explain what's going on. So another thing that our CSRs work on is financial assistance with our customers. So a lot of people will call in, they may struggle with a bill or having to make a payment on time. So we really work with our customers to give them some flexibility with how they can pay their bills. And sometimes we'll allow them, to request 2 weeks or more to pay off their past due balance. If it's escalated a little bit further than that, we partner with local charities such as Loud and Cares and the Salvation Army to help our customers too. So we have a good relationship with those two groups. And then COVID assistance programs and outreach. This is just a really interesting couple of years. And during COVID, we were awarded funds through the Municipal Utility Relief Program to assist our customers that had financial hardship due to the pandemic. And a lot of work went into informing and educating customers that, number one, this program even existed, and then also how to apply for the funding, filling out attestation forms, kind of a laborious process. But at the end of the day, we awarded, with the help of our CSRs, $535,000 to 920 accounts. But I think the really interesting thing about this program was, even though all of the resources were online and they could fill out the forms online, they could sign their attestation online, 80 to 90% of the customers who applied for this program picked up the phone and called us. So they really wanted to speak with a customer service agent to help them walk through the forms, help them walk through what the program meant, talked about how it's applied. And so I just thought that was a really interesting statistic that these tools were online, but they really wanted to kind of hear a friendly voice, and our customer service reps were really helpful during what could be a really difficult time for some people. So on the flip side, we do sometimes receive complaints, and usually they come in either an email or to the call center. And our goal is really to address those within 1 to 2 business days. And typically the supervisor or manager listen to the customer and they'll de-escalate the situation pretty quickly. The last thing we want as a group on our team is for a customer to get to Carla or to you guys or to the board of supervisors. We really want to avoid that. So we try really hard to listen to the customer, understand what their problem is, and then resolve it. So I think we do a pretty good job. There's always the one or two that are kind of difficult, but we've done a really good job kind of dealing with those complaints.
Do you give new representatives a formal training? What kind of training do they get?
We do. The training, I think, is about 3 weeks. And it's everything from SAP to speaking with a customer on phone to understanding how the call center works. Usually we have some new CSRs actually now and they're in the training, but we have one trainer who's been at Loud and Water for, oh gosh, I want to say over 20 years. Andrea, if you're on the phone, you can correct me, but it is a 3-week process. And then once they go through that, they kind of shadow a current CSR. So they're kind of not thrown in right away. They listen and they shadow and they're coached. And of course, we would never put someone on the phone until they are 100% ready and comfortable. And the good part about that too is they all sit together. Our group is right next door. So if somebody has a real problem, they don't know the answer, let me put you on hold real quick and let me talk to my neighbor right here and help you with the answer. But they get a very robust training.
Continuing training?
We have a training program at Loud and Water that you can take anything from really technical trainings to if you want to be a better writer with your email communications, we have training for that as well. So the training really is, you can kind of request courses throughout your life at Loud and Water. But I think it's a really, the environment provides for a good learning environment and they can always, get better and learn more. And speaking on that vein, when we have open positions at Loud and Water, our group is the first ones that get picked because they are up to speed. They know the computer systems. Like I said, they know a little bit about everything. And so they've really become valuable assets to the organization. And we encourage that. We get sad when they leave, but that's just how it goes. So I mentioned LW Connect before. And this is just another tool that people can manage their customer account online. So we have three new initiatives that we're using this year. And one of them is going to be, we talked about customer complaints that usually can help us come up with some new ideas. And LW Connect has been a really good place to kind of test out some new ideas. One of the largest enhancements we're going to be doing this year is a water consumption graph. So this enhancement, our customers are really excited about it. It will provide additional visibility into their consumption patterns on a monthly, weekly, or daily basis. And it will also help customers determine if they have a leak. We're also creating an estimated bill projection calendar. And this will allow our customers to see how much their bill might be based on the current trend of how much water they're using. And this is going to be really important, especially during the springtime, because we bill quarterly. People will start irrigating in April, May, or June, and then they don't really realize or pay attention to their irrigation settings. They don't know how much water they're using. And so then in the fall or whenever their billing cycle is, they will get a very larger bill than they're used to. simply because they've been irrigating all summer. So this will be a really nice way for them to be more aware of the water they're using, and then maybe throttle it back a little bit so they won't be surprised with such a large bill later. Another enhancement, kind of along the same line, is that we'll have a way for a customer to select a daily water limit of their choice. So for example, 250 gallons a day is what I'd like to use in my household. I have, 2 kids. This, I think, is a pretty good estimate of what we'll be using. And so once they go beyond that, they'll get a text or an email to say, you've gone beyond your water, your pre-selected water limit. Just a heads up if you wanted to change your behavior or patterns in that way. That will also help, customers determine if they have a leak too, because if they're really way beyond kind of their pattern, they'll realize that something might be a little off. So that they can call in and we can help them kind of identify if they have a leak. So again, I mentioned before, some of our best feedback comes from our customers, and that particular one, the 250 set water limit, that came in kind of as a complaint, but kind of as a suggestion, and we really took it to heart because we know we can always get better, and that's just something that, working with our vendor, they said it can be an easy enhancement, so we're gonna be working on that. We're also enhancing the program enrollment section, so it'll be just a nice, cleaner look and feel, and it'll make it easier for people to choose their communications preferences. Another feature of LW Connect is the texting tools that it provides. Everybody has their phone. They have their phone 24/7. And so if you sign up for e-billing text alerts, you will get an email saying that your bill is due, what the amount is, when the due date is. You'll also get a message when it's coming due, when it's past due, or if you had a returned payment, you'll get that information as well. So we're really communicating with our customers 24/7. In addition to calling in, obviously we have information on our website. Right now it's hydrant flushing season, so the customer service representatives know about what areas that our teams will be in, what it entails. A customer may call in and say, their water has a funny taste or odor. What can they do? There's information on checking for leaks. You can also pay your bill, start service, stop service on our website as well. The other interesting thing about our website is that hero image on the front page there. Right now we have hydrant flushing, but we really try to align that with some seasonal messaging that we do during the year. So for example, we will have wise water use here coming up in the next couple of weeks, just because it'll be irrigation season. In the wintertime, we have information on frozen pipes. And another kind of cool thing that we do is we align all of that messaging with our on-hold tips on our phones. So if a customer calls in, say they never used our website or whatnot, they call in, and then if they're on hold, they're listening to the same messaging that you would see on our website. Here's some tips to avoid frozen pipes. It's summertime. Make sure you're practicing wise water use. If you want more information, go to our website. So they all kind of work in concert together.
It's a great picture.
It is a great picture. It's one of my favorites. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Web form management is another big piece of what the customer relations representatives do. We have over 40 different forms on our website, and this is just an example. Contact us, we get 10 per day. So in addition to these phone calls that are fairly large amounts of phone calls that come in, we also get these forms that come in, and it can be anything from I forgot my account number to there is a leaking hydrant on my street, or there is a broken meter lid and I think it might be dangerous. So people fill those out. We can upload a photo. The customer can upload a photo to show us what they're talking about. But these forms take a lot of management, a lot of answering, a lot of care and feeding. And so our customer relations agents will also kind of distribute those forms to the person who would be in charge of that. So it's just another kind of time-consuming process, but it really helps the customer reach out to us without picking up the phone.
Just curious, That last form, hydrant meter reading form, what is that?
So that is a part of our hydrant meter program where, so say companies will come in and get a hydrant meter for dust cleaning or cleaning up after
okay.
construction sites. Yeah, and they have to report the meter number, how much water they use, and then it comes back to us. I'm not the expert on that program.
Well, I've used that program and it's pretty tight.
Yes.
Yeah, if you're
Yeah.
late, you're late. And yeah.
How often are you late, Jim?
They don't let us do that anymore. I used to water soccer fields with, off the hydrants, so they don't let the people do that anymore. So,
One too many times.
yeah, one too many times. Yeah.
At least legally.
Yeah. Used a lot of water though.
So now I'll shift a little bit to our communications and outreach team. And like I said in one of the first slides, we are a team. We are a whole team together, us and customer relations. You do not have to read all of the information on the slide. It's just meant to show you kind of a breadth of all the things that we're responsible for in our group. And so in addition to working in lockstep with communications, we also work with almost every department at Loud and Water. And one of the first items we work on, we've designed and developed our company intranet, which is called The Leaf. And basically, we work across the organization to collect and compile relevant resources for internal use. So anything from human resources information, holiday schedule, payroll schedule, those types of things, procurement materials that a staff member might need, training materials, information on events, so any board meeting, any committee meeting, technology resources. That was a pretty big effort during COVID. People were just, if they had any questions about Teams or how to set up their machines at home, we had resources on the Leaf about that. Staff announcements, we have a community page where we talk about birthdays or weddings or birth announcements. So kind of off the clock fun stuff that we post as well when people submit photos and announcements. It's really also a great resource for new employees during their onboarding process. You can learn pretty much everything about the internal workings of Loud and Water on our intranet, in addition to an employee directory. So it has photos of every single employee, what department they're working in. So it's just nice to, if you're a new person, just to connect a name with their face. Mm-hmm. Yes. So we also partner with other departments within Loud and Water as well. And these are just a couple of examples of the ways that the communications team serves as a resource and a partner. With engineering, we do a lot with engineering. For one, on the website, when they are working on a capital construction project, we will post the project. Mark mentioned these fact sheets that they put together for us. They will get posted. Working with GIS, we'll get maps up there of where the project is taking place. We will help them distribute their technical memos to the industry. We'll work with them on brochures, Call Before You Dig. Plug for April is National Safe Digging Month. So that is a postcard that we've sent out to make sure people are safely digging. We work with compliance on our annual drinking water quality report, and that is a document that is we are required to deliver that to our customers. And we work really closely with compliance to get the numbers and graphs and all of that for that publication. We do one for community systems and one for the central system. Just a few more examples. Customer relations, we put together the customer handbook with a customer relations team. Also different collateral on, if your pipes freeze, some of the field service techs will bring these with them when they're out in the field. We could put these in bills if we needed, if we thought that it would be really important to do that. We work with finance. Obviously, you all know how we work on the annual comprehensive financial report with finance. And then even something as simple, working with O&M on their cross connection and backflow postcards, because people who have irrigation systems have to test a certain amount of time annually. And we use that opportunity too to remind people that it's a really good time to check their irrigation settings with the summer months coming up. Mark mentioned this earlier as well. The communications team is the liaison with the Board of Supervisors aides. And this is really important because sharing information with the Board of Supervisors ensures there are no surprises and helps the supervisor easily handle customer inquiries. So engineering is a great example. When they share information with us, if we know where it's taking place and we work with the supervisor aide, say it's taking place in Sterling, we'll just say, hey, this project is coming up. If you get any calls, here's what's happening. If you'd like more information on the project, please reach out to us and we're happy to give you more information or speak with the project manager. And also, by the way, if your constituents would like more information, it's on our website and we'll provide them a link. So we've worked really hard over the past several years to build these relationships with the Board of Supervisors and their aides so that we're their trusted partner and they know if something's happening with Loud and Water, they can reach out to us really easily and we will get back to them almost immediately. So now just a little bit about the tools and tactics we use to engage our customers. These are just some examples of some Facebook posts that we've done. We have 3,700 followers on Facebook. We have accounts on Instagram and LinkedIn. And these are really kind of a fun way to get creative with some graphics, leaning in on some, Happy Pi Day, saving water can be easy as pie, just kind of clever little graphics that people kind of engage with us on. We promote, we're doing an art contest right now with some other regional partners and area high schools, so students can submit their artwork on source water protection, and there will be a competition coming up here, I think, at the end of the month.
Do we tweet?
We do have accounts on Twitter. We don't tweet as much. We find that we get more interaction on Facebook and Instagram just because they're more visual, but we do have a Twitter account as well. And then obviously, I think we've said this many times before, when students can't come to us in our aqueary, we go to them. And by the way, this is not just the communications and outreach team, this is everybody in Loud and Water. So there's a photo on the left there, High School Engineering Week, and I think it's Kendra and Savita who lended their time to speak with those students. We go out to the elementary schools and do our watershed model demonstration, and that directly aligns with an SOL that they have in science. I believe it's in 3rd or 4th grade, so we go out there a lot at the elementary schools. And that's Erica Cueva. She is our outreach manager, and she will be at that school. There's probably 8 classes, and they have to break that up. So she'll be there all day working with the kids on the watershed model, and it's a lot of fun. And then in addition to school visits, we also partner with some other groups. This particular one is the Global Inheritance Leading Ladies Initiative. And that's an initiative that is aimed to provide internships and leadership training to underserved high school girls. And it's in the past 2 years, it's been virtual because of COVID. But hopefully, I think this year they'll be in person in the summer. And basically, we provide them 2 leadership sessions here. That particular photo you're looking at is, again, a cross-section of people at Loud and Water. We have engineers, we have our compliance folks on there, digital media manager. So it's just a really nice way to, even though we were kind of constrained with COVID, we were still able to support and participate in these programs. And then customer engagement, there's nothing better than face-to-face. So we go to HOA events, community festivals, health fairs, summer camps, scouting events. We've done the Boy Scout camps a couple of times. We've hosted Girl Scouts doing their World of Water program, and they can get a badge if they complete that. But it's really just a nice way to put a friendly face on Loud and Water, build some trust, some goodwill when they see us out in the community. So if they do have a problem, hopefully it won't come in the form of a complaint. It'll come in the form of a question. And we like to create those relationships with face-to-face. And those are some of our customer relations agents in that booth as well. So not only are they also lend their time on Saturdays or Sundays. Hopefully, I know that was really fast and it's a lot of information. All the work that goes into really showing Loud and Water in the best light possible.
Personally, I am impressed. That's a tremendous effort.
we have a really good team. It's, everyone kind of believes in the cause and they're happy to get involved. Like I said, those, that was a Saturday or a Sunday event and it wasn't even a blink of an eye. Yeah, absolutely. I'll go out there. I love interacting with the community. It's fun talking about Loud and Water and handing out rain gauges and things like that. So it's a very good group. We're lucky.
One of the things I found in Fairfax, if you have a good customer relation, when you go out to get an easement or a project like that, if they see Loud and Water and you have a good reputation, it makes that end of the business easier too.
Absolutely.
It's
That's right. And one of the things over the years we've talked about, all of these kinds of activities together are about building a relationship with our customers. So, part of it is if we're ever getting in a time of need, we have, a major drought, and we need to ask for help for people to really work with us and use less water. It's not the first time they're hearing from us. There's some context there. So that's kind of one of the long-term
Yeah.
kind of visions of all of it in developing a relationship.
I was going to mention as well, I've kind of observed that across the organization, the culture that exists within the customer relations group is really one that exists in all departments. So, and over time, we've even had, some company-wide training on customer service in all things we do. So it's really refreshing. And, to your point, Mr. Sultan, when we are seeking easements or, going into various difficult situations, it really helps us out. So just wanted to share my observations.
I have one question. Talk most about the end user customers, both business there, but do we get many inquiries from gray water customers? Data centers and others?
The purple water, the
Water,
reclaimed.
yeah, reclaimed water. I said gray water. Reclaimed.
We do. I don't know exactly how many we get in or the types of questions that we'll get in. But again, going back to the knowing a little bit about everything, and sometimes the best thing to know is the person to send that call to, just to answer it the best. So if a call does come in about data centers, gray water, that type of thing, we'll either, go to Micah, Robin.
Yeah.
So we'll be able to answer their questions.
Well, I would say, to that, in particular, those are primarily the data centers. And that's a small enough kind of community that we have a very specific relationship. And it's, through Robin and Micah kind of as a team. They all of the data centers know them. They'll even regularly have communication with them. So they usually know a contact here where they're going through them. They're not just calling into the general number. So it's a pretty strong relationship there.
They get known pretty well. They go to data center committees.
Yeah. And we, and that ties into also the county's economic development and Buddy Riser, and there's a connection there. So when they hear from them, they're calling over too. So it's a pretty close knit group.
I would add as well, we've formed a pre-treatment group under the leadership at Broad Run that has helped us get proactive with those customers to, from time to time when you see our quarterly compliance report at the full board meeting and in that package, if we happen to have a permit exceedance or any issues at Broad Run, what that's done is it's allowed us to kind of get out there more proactively with that industry. It has its own unique concerns with what they're sending back to us at Broad Run in their wastewater and so forth. So it's become quite a partnership. To Mark's point, the pre-treatment group is working directly with Robin and Micah, and it's a united front. And I think it's showing up with our customers and with the reclaim customers, in that when we do need to pick up the phone and give them a call about a particular event or an issue, it's very collaborative.
Any other questions?
No, I got a guy reached out to me this past week, a few days ago, and so he's in Broad Run Farms there with the plume, I guess we call it there. He's just outside, so he goes, "What do I do?" But that's how we'd like to hook up to Loud and Water. What it is, so call the customer relations people. I'll send you in the right direction. I said, "If there's any problems, let me know." But I assume everything was good.
Yeah, well, and we haven't updated on that. There hasn't been a lot of activity, but you know, kind of the quick one, you know, there's a federal government through the EPA project there for those close by, but the county has now put funding forward and we're doing the design. We've actually gotten almost ahead of the EPA project. And so
Good.
the idea is that should all be
Surprise,
coordinated
surprise.
when it gets constructed. So we're kind of staying in contact with the county and we're really ready to go.
So
So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
One of the things we used to do with Fairfax is if a call came in from a customer, no matter who it went to, that customer should not have to call back. You take the phone number and that person, whether it's your general manager or anybody, get in touch with somebody in-house and get them to call back.
Yeah.
But we didn't have as good a outfit as you have. But this is impressive.
great. Well, thank you, sir. Great. So we have one more kind of a brief item and but I think you'll find it interesting. So, you know, I'm going to just give Micah a little bit of an update or a introduction. Micah is going to be sharing some thoughts through Teams and online, so you'll hear his voice from above. So, you know, a couple things. I think probably you all are familiar with, you know, Virginia's kind of set up, and they have a legislative season here and through the winter. And of course, this year with a change in administration, that adds an extra element, some change in leadership and people. Some of you might be familiar with Mike Rollband, who comes from Loudoun County, and he's now the head of DEQ for Virginia through this transition. Yeah. Yeah. So
That's
very
good.
interesting.
That's good
Yeah.
for the Commonwealth.
It is. But what we have, you know, a lot of participation for Loudon Water, both at kind of the broader policy level as well as getting into the technical issues. We do that. Our whole industry does that through many of our associations. So Micah will touch on that and just give some highlights of a couple of the big issues that were there. So with that, Micah View, our business program manager, will walk through a couple highlights.
All right. Thank you, Mark, and thank you, Jewel and Michael. And good afternoon. I'm sorry, should I say good morning, board members. My name is Mike View, and I'm pleased to provide you with a brief legislative update. Let's see, I'm having issues with slide advancement. Apologies.
Can you move your mouse to the left? Sorry, instead of the right. There you go. Go ahead and double click.
Thanks, Michael.
No problem.
Go. Okay, so I think as most of you are aware, the General Assembly convenes each year, generally running a session between January and March. Some sessions are longer, but it's the opportunity for the Commonwealth to take up the business of the people. So pre-filing of legislation actually begins in 2021 in November of each year. And what we try to do, of course, is track that legislation, monitor where there will be impacts to the organization or business, and then deliberate internally, right? To talk a little bit about what the possible impacts could be to our business and how we execute it, what the impact may be to other authorities or municipalities, right? And really try to understand the favorability or unfavorability of a certain piece of legislation. We discuss that with our association partners primarily, though we also have a strong relationship with the county. So I think it's important for the board to understand that we monitor and coordinate our legislative affairs primarily through our association memberships. You have Alton on the board with VWWAA and Mark on the board with VAMWA. And then I stay engaged with the county's legislative review group, essentially signaling to them our positions on bills so that we have some common understanding of where our interests are at. During session, we host weekly phone calls with, weekly phone calls with our association partners and our association members, our peer authorities. And again, the idea is that we do this collectively. We try to take a very broad sample of opinions and stakeholder input on the legislation that has been introduced during a given General Assembly, and then ultimately put our ducks in a row, right? Inform our lobbying through these associations so that we're able to, one, properly prioritize the legislation, and two, act in a way that's really going to benefit our ratepayers and our organization. And so here's an overview of legislation that was active in the 2022 session. On the right side, those are primarily administrative items. If you have questions about those, I'm happy to answer those for you, but I'll focus on the left side of the slide. First is the budget. I think, as everyone in the room is aware, the Commonwealth has not adopted a state budget at this point. They were called into session yesterday and weren't able to make the compromise. This year is better than most years insofar as we actually have a state surplus of revenue that needs ultimately to find the right kind of allocation and encumbrance. We ended up with about $14 million more dollars coming in revenue, and there's I'm sorry, $14 billion more dollars, and there's about $3 billion right now that needs to have a topic assigned to it, right? It needs a line item partner. So there will be more to follow with that. In terms of what's really important for our associations and for Loudon Water's interest, what you had is the continuation now more than 2 decades of full funding of the Water Quality Improvement Fund. That is a dedicated pot of funds that's used to improve wastewater treatment, waste load allocation, nutrient management across the state. And so it's nice to see again that we have strong partners regardless of political affiliation or leadership in the House or the Senate. We have common interest and strong support for what our industry priorities are. And you can actually see that in other parts of the budget as well, in the way that they've dedicated funding to ARPA or ARPA funding projects in either urban or rural areas of need where nutrient management activities ultimately they need to be carried out for the state to come in line with its Chesapeake Bay goals.
Mike,
Moving down.
how
Oh, go
much
ahead.
of that money does Loudon Water utilize, if any?
It's interesting. So it's allocated on a project by project basis. As I understand the Water Quality Incentive Fund, it's actually an entitlement. So where we have an eligible project, we are eligible for a portion of funds. As with most state programs, right, it's a needs-based sliding scale approach to awarding those or forgiving certain loans in some cases and turning those into grants. And so after all of the priority areas, isn't it, lower income western portions of Virginia or priority urban areas are addressed, where those funds are left over, a Loudon Water application or a Fairfax Water application, right, would de facto be eligible for any unencumbered funding in that pot should they have an eligible project. And that is really in line with the overall story of the power and influence of our lobbying groups. I think we're starting to see more and more strengthening of the foundation, sort of buttressing the financial mechanisms that can support good infrastructure investment. And again, the WQIF fund is really the primary way that the state contributes to local water and wastewater problem solving.
I was just trying to get a sense of how meaningful that was to us. I mean, obviously we're well capitalized, so
Yeah.
not a big thing from there. But is this something where Loudon Water's benefiting to the tune of a couple $100,000 a year, $50,000 a year? Is this in the millions? How meaningful is this to us?
Yeah, it depends on a state case by case, project by project basis. In the past, we've leveraged these funds for purchasing capacity in DC Water's system and the expansion of the PI. We will be eligible in our future phases for either collection system upgrade or treatment upgrade to bring in some of these funds to support our project work. But in large part, it's dependent on the number of other applicants, the types of projects that they've brought to the pot that have eligible funding, where they line up in criteria. And then, the larger, more well-heeled organizations, again, have an entitlement to those funds, but are generally bringing out less than the lion's share to support their projects. So it could be to the tune of several $100,000, given the scale of some investments. It may well go into the millions. And should we be lucky to apply in a year when other applications are down, that's favorable for us.
I was just going to add that, is my microphone working?
Yeah.
That we have been able to utilize some state funds in the past. Unless they're grant funding, typically it's cheaper for us to borrow our own money. And again, because we have a sound financial position, we are going to be lower on that totem pole when it comes to allocating those funds, but we have utilized them in the past.
But it's not a very meaningful thing to us, is what I'm getting the sense. This isn't a big
No,
big
no.
piece of our operations.
I mean, we always look into it and, we can apply, but we're kind of going to be,
Well, and a
know.
lot of times, you go, is the juice worth the squeeze here? And
Absolutely.
it sounds like this one's probably not worth the squeeze often.
right.
That's
Exactly.
correct. And same for federal funds, right? They have certain material conditions or reporting conditions or construction conditions, labor conditions, right? Other things that might just otherwise modify the way that you're going to approach your infrastructure investment. And so, again, what we try to do is be aware of what's out there when it's favorable and it works for us and it lines up. I want everyone to have confidence that we'll be pursuing it. That's what we've done in the past, and that's what we'll continue to do. Moving down into the second bullet here, tax exemption. This has been a priority for VAMWA and our association peers for a long time. And what it does is allows us to self-certify our tax exempt status for certified pollution control equipment. So think about this in terms of the Broad Run water reclamation facility upgrades. There are items that would be included in a contractor's bid to perform that work that, should we run into an issue with self-certification, what we have is basically some delay, right? Or some misalignment between what a bidder's number might be for a given project and what that number would be given our tax exempt status. And what we've had to do in the past is go to the state. They give us the rubber stamp. Indeed, you're a public body. You are tax exempt. Now we're able to do that ourselves. It simply streamlines a known process and allows us to have bids that are sort of better in conformance for the actuals that we would see in terms of project delivery. As in every year, we have an eminent domain bill. This is just a minor modification this year, but it does affect the calculation of just compensation. So we have a redefinition of lost access and lost profits. Minor modification, but it's always something that the utilities need to keep up with. Data security is now a more important issue than ever for the state, as they were the victims of a malware attack. And in part, some of the issues that we had with legislative service delivery this year, hiccups you may have seen on their website, issues that they had pre-filing and certifying their bills, all had to do with a malware attack. And so this bill really zipped through before crossover, even zipped through the House and the Senate. And what it's going to do is set up a public body reporting requirement. Should you have a data breach, there will be certain descriptions and information that our public bodies will now have to pass along to the state's chief information officer. Apologies, I'm having some real problems with my double click today. Environmental boards. This, for me, is one of the most important pieces of legislation that may ever be passed in my time working with Loudoun Water. What you saw was a modification this year of the State Water Control Board's power to permit projects. So their duties really are regulatory, right? To set up the framework so that we can execute water law, right, in the state, carry out our projects with known regulatory boundaries. But they have now had their permitting power stripped from them, and I think that this is ultimately a very good thing, right? Permitting itself should approach an entitlement track, right? It's set up with technical criteria. Should the regulatory structure, right, provide for all of the information that you would need, right, to justify the issuance of an environmental permit. In some cases, certainly in other states, what you'll see is a permit appealed and not taken directly to circuit court, but taken to the Water Control Board. And there it's opened up to the biases of the individual members who themselves are not, experts in water quality or receiving stream conditions, things like that. And so this really does minimize some of the permitting risk that's been out there. It certainly closes the window on some issues with public perception at that highest level. Public bodies and interest groups will certainly still have the opportunity to appeal and make comment on certain permits related to the authorities. But the idea that could be escalated all the way to the State Water Control Board and suddenly be revoked, that rug will never be pulled out from underneath a permittee or applicant, at least at that level like it had been in the past. And that's a very very important step that our associations have worked on to really allow a common sense pathway for us to approach, one, how we approach permitting, how we approach normal operations, and three, really keeping the State Water Control Board within the framework for which it was originally intended, which is to develop the regulation itself, provide the framework, and allow others to execute. Our last piece is a drinking water item, and I'm sure you have heard us speak about PFAS quite a lot since 2019. That's when we saw our first PFAS bill. There was some activity in previous legislative sessions that set up a PFAS working group for the state to essentially sort of see where is the occurrence of PFAS and what's the extent. And the idea was that we were going to, through this work group, build a body of knowledge and make some informed steps forward with respect to how we might regulate PFAS in the state. And you had two drivers. You have the US EPA and their federal process to develop a Safe Drinking Water Act standard for PFAS, which is in action now and set to be released in late 2024 or early 2025. And so what this legislation is really doing, it's saying, whoa, 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 Commonwealth of Virginia, don't get ahead of yourself. We don't need to spend $1 million to do the science and the research to come up with standards for our own for these particular contaminants. We can wait on the Safe Drinking Water Act process. We will adopt those just as we have all other Safe Drinking Water Act standards, and we're not going to develop our own, right? We're not going to go beyond what US EPA sets forth as its standard. And so this is a very big win for the state. It's been 4 years of, at least for my hands, some hand rubbing about where this would go and what its final form would be. And now we have what I would call a very strong win for all authorities and municipalities that are going to have to meet these requirements. We have time to phase in some changes. And most importantly, we have a return to normal order, which is following the delegated process of adopting federal standards and then moving those forth in the execution of a VDH program. So that's the story there. It's a very, very important win, I think, coupled with the win with environmental boards, what we've done in the past with the phase 3 WIP and the nutrient management work that we had done in the previous sessions. We're really looking at 4 consecutive sessions without having any bad bills come up to bite us. We've been able to oppose those bills either singly or in coalitions with the Manufacturers Association, right? We have other sort of partners that can buttress your argument, right? Just to demonstrate greater opposition or greater support. And so to me, it's really demonstrative of the relationships that VAMWA and VWWA hold, not just with legislators, but also with other associations with common interests. So if there are other questions, I'm happy to take them, but I'm really pleased to give this presentation today because it is, to my mind, the 4th consecutive year that we've come away killing bad bills completely, right? We eliminated everything this year. There were some things that maybe we don't like the data security reporting requirement in terms of having an additional administrative duty, but that's certainly something we can live with, certainly see the reason behind it. Those aren't the kind of things that you oppose. When it comes to, say, utility disconnections, like you would see on the previous page, it's something that we had all dealt with during our COVID period, right? And we're going to have a delay, or we're going to have a special process. It's nice to see that we were able to get ahead of those bills and essentially, again, chart that course back to normal operation. So I'll leave it with that.
Thank you very much.
Mike, I have a question. The legislation removing the authority, the permitting authority from the Water Control Board, that has not been adopted yet, but it's just being considered. Help me understand that.
Oh, no, that has passed the House and Senate. It should be signed by the governor and should become law July 1, with the exception of that House Bill 919, the PFAS contaminant bill. Everything will become law July 1, but you had a modified enactment clause. So for the PFAS bill, you're looking at July 1, 2025.
Okay. So the governor's indicated that he's going to sign all this stuff.
That's my understanding.
Okay, great. Okay, cool. And then the PFAS regulating stuff, I know we've been looking at sort of having our own view there. Does that affect any of our own deliberations or thoughts around that? Or that's just kind of in the background and we go, okay, the federal government's doing their own thing, the state's going to defer to them, but we kind of have our own initiative internally here looking at how do we want to treat some of these issues?
I think that's right. What Micah was explaining is that the possibilities Virginia gets out ahead of the national standard, and you don't know where that ends up being.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that's really a good thing. Now, we're watching also very close where things are headed at the national standard with the EPA. But what we're also doing, as we were talking about, I think last year in the water quality session of this, is we're doing some of our own monitoring and kind of looking at PFAS to set some baselines and kind of know where we are, where the source water is. So we're able to do some work to understand where's our starting point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that makes sense to me. Thank you.
I have a question, of maybe too early, but do you have a general idea as to where the governor sits on issues that we're interested in, just in a general sense? It's kind of early to-
This is going to be hard in light of the appointments that weren't made for natural resources. So this is a semi-political issue, right? We had someone nominated that was not confirmed. And based on the history of that nominee, my sense is that you're going to have more of a relaxed approach. I would say less desire for future regulations on the industry, some desire to streamline, and certainly the idea here that we can be discreet in the roles of government and still effectively deliver our VDH and DEQ programs. So that's a big sidestepping response, but I would expect with a conservative governor a more conservative approach to the execution of our environmental programs and water issues.
And just to add, so in specifically, this is Secretary of Natural Resources, which DEQ falls under as well. The nominee was not appointed, and so essentially there's a deputy that was also, and they don't need the appointment, so they'll be acting basically for the next year. Now, as I mentioned, Mike Rolban was appointed into the head of DEQ, so there are people in place, but there is a little bit of a just sort of an element of unknown with that secretary position not going through. So for the next year, there'll kind of be someone who's there, but a little different.
How long does it take to fill that position?
Well, my understanding, it's a pretty complicated process, but what happens is whoever was in there as the deputy doesn't need the formal approval. So they will be acting until next year's session.
Okay. So
And
Until
And
he
they'll put it-
nominates another one.
So,
Yeah.
yep, exactly.
does the General Assembly put forward a nominee? How does a nominee get put forward?
No, that's the governor.
Okay, so the
Yeah.
governor will nominate somebody and then the General Assembly has to confirm it.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So you can apply to the governor.
Well, so that's the
great.
show for today.
No,
So,
that's
yeah,
really
unless
great.
there are any other questions.
Thank you, Micah. That was great.
And-
Thank you.
and-
Yes, Micah,
Thank
that
you.
was
Thanks,
good.
Micah. And so, in the over the next couple months, the next round of this will be getting into our water quality theme. Somewhere probably in the June timeframe,
Yeah,
we'll kind of
June
work
timeframe.
through that. But
Something-
we've got some things in mind that, will be good timing and some additional updates. So that's what we'll be looking forward to next.
Some of the things that came up that some of us have talked about, obviously what the media calls forever chemicals, PFAS and others. And so we always want to stay current with that at least once a year. The other thing that came up, and I think I sent you an email on this, was about the public health testing of waste treatment.
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting thing, and what we've done in the past and what we did for COVID and stuff
Yep.
would be an interesting thing to cover. You brought up sort of the quality report. It's always a very interesting process how we pull that together. There may be another topic. I can send you an email with
Sure,
some of these.
that'd be great.
I'm always interested because I'm a data center guy in the purple water. And at some point, we're going to have more demand than we have water. That it seems like, at least in this area. But there are some trends in that industry to use more air cooling rather than water, and air conditioning. There was a mention in this meeting about pre-treatment, and so that's an interesting topic for us. And then, of course, keeping track of what's going on with DEQ and how that affects us. I did think that this, the way the different environmental boards interact now will be. I think that's a net positive for us as an organization. So that's what I had. Any other topics that you might
Yeah,
want to throw out there?
I
Yeah.
sent you an email. The one process that in this organization we haven't covered is the actual collection of samples, what's done with the samples, how they're collated, what's actually done in the lab. Maybe go over some of the tests and exactly how you test, whether it's sewage or water. That whole process, I think, might be an interesting topic to go over. That's the one place I don't think we've covered before, unless I'm in my demented
We've got a
age,
few
I'm
in mind, but
forgetting.
yes, you're right.
Yeah.
Yep. It's on
So
the
I
list.
thought that might be a good topic to cover.
Yeah.
The whole stream from A
Yeah.
to Z.
This is great. It's great to have these ideas.
A very inquisitive group here.
Yeah, we've got another idea potentially for the next, the timing might work out. There's a lot of sort of upcoming kind of regulatory drivers that are really influencing a lot of our conversation around our phase 3 planning for Broad Run. And the timing might be really right for a good update and kind of where we are in that process, but how the water quality regulations are really driving some of that. So it might work out really well for timing, but it's great to have these ideas because we will get to all of these. So I think you can see, I mean, we were talking, about the development of this kind of a committee, and it's just things that we don't often get the opportunity to share. And so I think it's been fun to be able to kind of walk through some of these areas that we don't normally get to cover.
One of the other things with engineering and other folks, groups who go to some of the association events that we belong to, be kind of curious to know some of those at some point. Those are that type of engagement. Clearly, we're engaged on the legislative side with those agencies, but I've seen some invites occasionally for because I sign up for these newsletters. They of course want me to come and pay the $600 to go to the show, which I don't know if I can make it to a 3-day show. So.
Yeah.
But that's good to know. Anything else?
No, I think it's great. At the board level, you just.
Nice that all of us are.
Build the base.
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess that's the end of the meeting. I guess we need a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
All right.
Thank you all.
Very much.
Thank you.
Very
Thank you
good.
so much. I mean, that was a really great presentation and Micah's presentation.
I'm gonna start
There was
calling.
a
them
lot of
questions.
information.